Well, after a rocky Season 1 filled with many mixed reviews, it seemed that *Halt and Catch Fire* was doomed and had no chance of coming back, but all of that changed once Season 2 rolled around. Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is my review for the second season of *Halt and Catch Fire*. Yes, I have finished second season. Literally took me 2 days. I finished it way faster than Season 1, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is the main reason why I watched this show, because I heard that the second season was such an improvement over Season 1, and I really wanted to see, how Season 2 was going to be, because as you guys know, I didn't hate Season 1. I didn't think Season 1 was a bad season. Did I think it was that great of a show? No. I think it was a very broken show. I think it was a show that had a lot of missed potential, and it really didn't seem like the show was going to get any better. In fact, I would have assumed the show would have gotten canceled. I was shocked, I remember, when I found out it got renewed for Season 2. I couldn't believe it, because nobody watched it. Literally nobody watched *Halt and Catch Fire*. I mean, some people might have tuned in for the premiere, but most people had left, like I did, after, halfway through the season. Most people had left by then, and I really didn't think the show had any chance of getting renewed, but it did. And I have to say that not only is Season 2 completely different from Season 1, so when it got to Season 2, you knew obviously a lot of changes had to be made because of how Season 1 was, because honestly, I don't really think the show could have survived another year if it was the same way that Season 1 was. Not that Season 1 was bad, it just wasn't really that compelling, and there wasn't really that great of a story, and there wasn't really much more of a story to be told there. It just would not have been as good. Which is why not only is Season 2 such an improvement over Season 1, it almost feels like an entirely different show, and that's because it kind of is. Season 2 is so drastically different from Season 1 in terms of tone, in terms of character, in terms of focus. There is so much more great stuff about the season, and I will definitely say it is definitely the case that this is the season that really hooked me in. This is the season that did everything I wanted Season 1 to do. All the stuff that Season 1 did right is in this season, and there's even more that they did with this season that I loved a lot more than Season 1. There's so much more to talk about here, but let's get into Season 2. Now, unlike Season 1, I'll be talking about everything that happens this season, because there is a lot of stuff that happens this season, a lot of good stuff. Now, is this a perfect season? No. I do think there is still some flaws, but they're very minute compared to Season 1. There isn't nearly the amount of flaws I had in Season 1. There are a lot of things that are improved here, and that's something I definitely will say. But let's get to the plot here, because you would expect that the plot would focus on our main leads. But the thing is with the show, there really isn't a main lead anymore, because one, I think the genius things about Season 2 is that it really is an ensemble show. We have a few different storylines going on here, and the thing is that they're all interesting, and none of them feel broken. All of them feel like they need to be there, and I definitely really did love that. Our main storyline, though, isn't focused on Joe or Gordon. It's actually focused on Donna and Cameron. Yes, they are our main focus of Season 2, which I thought was kind of cool, the way it kind of mirrors the relation between Joe and Gordon in Season 1, which I thought they did pretty well here, because Cameron's now in this position of power. She is somewhere where she is now the head of Mutiny, and you can tell that she's very power hungry. She really wants this place to succeed, and Mutiny is a place where they are developing video games and online chat things. I mean, it's a much more casual type system than Cardiff Electric was, and there's a lot more interesting stuff going on here, things like software and game updates and things like that. But Cameron, like I said, she is the leader of all this, and Donna is also working there. These two clash very frequently. You can clearly see that these two, while they enjoy being each other's presence, they're constantly clashing, and it's mainly because Cameron is the one that feels like she's in position of power. But Donna also offers many good suggestions, and that's something I really did like seeing, is I like seeing these two interact overall, because they have a very interesting relationship. You really are rooting for them, though, because Mutiny is a lot easier to root for. The crew in general is just a lot more fun to watch, and that's something I really did like seeing. I think in general the crew we have at Mutiny is just a lot more interesting, and they do a lot more with them than the crew in Cardiff, which I don't really remember any of the workers in Cardiff because they really only focused on those three, whereas season 2 focuses a lot more on everyone, and that's something I really loved about season 2. But anyway, they are encountering many problems, especially once someone starts to hack into their system and we don't know who that person could be or what's going on there, and this really leads them down a trail. You know, they really want to know what's going on, who's hacking into their system, because for a while things are pretty chill, and it's kind of hard to talk about the first 4 episodes because things are relatively calm. I mean, yeah, there's the banter between these two where they're really clashing about different ideas, where Cameron, you know, wants this to be a certain way, Donna has different ideas, but things don't really start to get crazy till, I'd say, episode 3 is really when things start to get pretty insane, because someone clearly is hacking into their system. We don't really know who it is, and in order for me to talk about the rest of that, we have to talk about Gordon, because Gordon has such an interesting arc of the season. I really love what they did with him, because Gordon's honestly kind of separate from everyone else. Everyone kind of has something, while Gordon's kind of away from it all, because very quickly, Cardiff is dropped. Cardiff, he decides that he doesn't want to continue because there's no one there, there's no reason to do it, and it wasn't as successful as he wanted to be. And also because, as we know, he looked at Joe as who he aspired to be. And as we know, Joe walked away from it. And if Joe's not there, he doesn't want to be in there. He doesn't really see a reason to continue. And because of that, Gordon's kind of alone for the rest of this season. It's kind of sad to see, but you can kind of understand why. And Gordon is suffering from many health problems and things like that, but he really wants to help Donna. So he is the one that ends up hacking into the system we see, which is crazy to see, and we get this great scene where Donna's lecturing him, and for the rest of the season, those two are kind of at odds. They're not really talking a lot. You can tell that they're obviously still married, but throughout the season, their marriage is tested a lot more than is in season 1, and the difference is that we already know these characters. In season 1, I thought it was just too quick to do it, but season 2, you can understand why they have a reason to do this, because Donna's away at Muni for most of the season. She doesn't even get to see her kids most of the time, so there really isn't a lot of time for these two to actually interact, and it's pretty crazy to see, but I like the way that they handled that storyline. They go in some very interesting directions with it, but like I said, for a while there is a hacker, and they end up thinking that the hacker actually is Joe, and let's get into Joe's storyline because of what they do with Joe's storyline this season. As you know, I liked Joe in season 1. For a while, I didn't. I thought that he was just this anti-hero that they want us to care about, and I really didn't, and he was just so mysterious, but now we know a lot about his past. I think one of the big themes of this season is getting us to really get behind Joe, and not only do they do that, but they really make Joe an even better character than he was, because Joe really has taken a lot of time in this year, because I forgot to say, it's a year later, you know, we skipped to a year later, but in this year, Joe has taken a lot of time to grow. He now has a fiance, Sarah, who very much supports him, and someone who really does understand him, but also someone who doesn't really know a ton about his past. We definitely see, you know, she doesn't know about his work at IBM, she doesn't know about his work at Cardiff, and most importantly, she doesn't know about his relationship with Cameron. She doesn't know about any of those things, and that's something that Joe has kind of tried to walk away from, because he kind of wants to use this time to start over. Remember, he kind of did this to look for his mother. Well, he ended up meeting Sarah along the way, and he's pulled back into Cardiff basically to, you know, get all the money. He receives absolutely nothing. Joe receives nothing because he didn't really do, nothing he did was original. He took Cameron's ideas, and they are completely pissed at him. They want nothing to do with him. They feel that he just walked away, and also the fact that he burned all those computers, the repercussions that that has on him, I thought was very interesting, because that's something I really didn't get into in the last season. But yeah, Joe walked away. He burned every single one of the computers and then just walked away, and this is obviously something that is going to get back at him. They're going to get angry at him for it, and Joe for a while is very much background. He is with Sarah, he's starting to get closer with her father, and it takes till basically episode 6 for him to really get into the main storyline, and that's something I did like with Joe, is that for a while he kind of is background, but he and Gordon have a much different relationship this season, you definitely do see, because he and Gordon, throughout the season, are a lot more cordial to each other. Obviously, you know, Gordon's not happy with Joe, but they start to understand each other, I think, a lot more this season. I think Joe understands Gordon more, and especially Gordon understands Joe. And Gordon goes through a lot of the same stuff that Joe went through last season, where, you know, in the sense that Gordon loses a lot of people. Gordon suffers with a lot of things, and he kind of like I said, goes through the same thing that Joe did, and I really thought that was interesting to watch. But Joe, meanwhile, you know, he's with Sarah's father, and he wants to propose to Sarah and basically settle down with her, and he starts to find out about Muni from Gordon, and of course, when he visits Gordon and Donna, you can tell that obviously he is going to do something, but once they get this hacker, they assume that Joe is the one that is in charge of this. You can clearly see that Joe's intentions have clearly changed. He's not there to screw things up. He's there to help them with Muni. He really just wants to assist them. The problem is, throughout the entire season, Cameron and Donna do not trust him. Obviously, because of what he did to them in season 1, they really do not think this is someone they can trust. Donna kind of does trust him. Cameron, on the other hand, really doesn't. After everything that he did to her in season 1, and especially the fact that he took credit for her ideas, that's something that she really hasn't held back. Donna, on the other hand, sees that he's changed, is trying to tell her, look, you need to bring him back in, we need to use him again, and Cameron's very tentative to do so. But he basically lets himself in. You know, Joe, when he wants something done, he's going to get it done, so he ends up letting himself in, and he clearly quickly sees that his services are not really required, because they already have Bosworth. Now, let me get back to this, because Bosworth is someone that I liked in season 1. I didn't really think much of him, though. I thought he was just a boss that got angry from time to time. He was kind of an asshole, and this season, I think they really did a lot more than they made him a lot more of an interesting character, and I really did like that. What they do with Bosworth this season is Bosworth is there for a couple things. One, he's very quickly released from prison because they need, you know, someone to assist them. They need a more authoritative type figure. They don't really have someone like that, and they get Bosworth. And Bosworth and Cameron really start to bond, but we also get more of Bosworth's personal life. He has a son and wife who he really hasn't been able to connect to because he's been in jail, and he starts to reconnect with them a little bit, and he starts to get much closer with his son. And it was actually really sweet. I really love what they did with Bosworth and his son this season. That's something I thought was very well done, and I think they handled that very well. Some of my favorite stuff this season had to do with Bosworth and his son, because just things like that were very interesting to watch. We even find out stuff about Cameron this season, which I found was very interesting. Cameron's name is Catherine, things like that. That stuff I thought was very interesting. But anyway, like I said, Joe really feels he's not required there, and he starts to work with, you know, against Muni with Wheeler, you know, Sarah's father, Jacob Wheeler, who Jacob Wheeler clearly, he does not trust Joe. He even says, I think a line where he says, I see a tyrant before me, I see someone who is, you know, evil, and he really does not trust Joe at all. And really, all season, I think Joe just wants someone to trust him, because he wants to show that he has changed, but no one's really seen it. And we'll get more into that in a second. I know this is a bit of a broken narrative, but there's a lot of pieces to this story, so you just gotta bear with me here, because like I said, the season's kind of hard to review, because everyone's kind of doing their own separate thing, and it's kind of hard to review it as a whole. I definitely will say that. But like I said, let's get back into Gordon, because there is a lot of stuff to cover there. Then we'll get more into Joe and Cameron and things that happen with that. But the other thing I love about Joe is the character of Sarah. This is a character that, like I said, I really did love, because like I said, this is someone that doesn't really know much about Cameron, but they did a very good job with her character, because I thought she was going to get annoying. I really did. I thought this was going to be an annoying character, but you really see very quickly that she does very much care about Joe. She really does love Joe, and she really does want to be with him, and he, at the same time, really does love her. This is someone that makes him feel good. This is someone he can open up to, and he really feels like they have a future together. The problem is, once Cameron comes into the fold, he starts to become a lot more distant from her. He starts to not talk to her as much, he starts to not let her in things as much, and she is not dumb. You know, she can very well tell what's going on, and I think they did a very good job at making her not just a plot device, but a full-fledged character. You understand her, you know, she really wants to be able to get close to Joe. She wants her and Joe to have a future together. The problem is, you kind of get the sense that Joe's only with her because he can't be with Cameron, and it's a very very sad moment where she realizes that it's Cameron, that he really does love Cameron and he wants to be with her. And, you know, she tries throughout their whole season to really get close to him, and he plans on moving to California so he can get away from all this, because he can focus on a new job, what he wants to do, and that's what he's gonna do. You know, they plan to go to California. They get married, first of all, which I forgot to say, they randomly get married, and they don't tell anyone. It's like a very small party they don't really tell many people about, but like I said, Joe and Wheeler really do start to butt heads. You know, he basically has these plans for Joe. Joe wants nothing to do with him because Wheeler is just making him, you know, feel like a failure. And he even says to Wheeler, when I have kids, I'm never going to let them know about you. I'm going to, you know, you're going to be the estranged grandfather. No one's going to know about you, and that's how that's going to go. But as far as things go with Sarah, basically he plans on going to California, and him and Cameron have this amazing moment, which is by far my favorite scene this entire season. My favorite episode of this season is episode 9, and one of the biggest reasons, now there's so many great reasons why, but one of the key reasons why episode 9 is my favorite episode this season is what they end up doing with Joe and Cameron in that episode. Because Cameron has this moment where she's with Joe and she realizes that their life could have been a lot different if she would have stayed with him, if they wouldn't be achieving these goals and they would have just stuck to being a couple and not try to create car drift and not try to create mutiny, then maybe they would actually be together. Maybe they did have a future together. And for the first moment in her life, she actually tries to stop him from leaving, and she's the reason why he's leaving. It's not because of the fact of something he did, it's because she doesn't want him there. You know, she was someone that said, oh, we can't trust you. If she trusted him, then he would have stayed, but the second that she tries to get close to him, she even kisses him. She goes in for a kiss, and he says no. He leaves, and it's this incredible moment, and at that moment, I was just like, that is the moment why I love this season, because it shows how far all the characters have come. Like I said, Joe's gone from someone who is this manipulative, you know, asshole prick of a guy who thinks he knows everything, to a guy who really just wants to prove himself to everyone and really just wants to show everyone the potential that he has and the ideas he has, and show that he has changed, and really show that he's done a lot of soul searching and he is a different person than he is, but no one really sees that this season. However, Cameron's in a position where she is in a position of power, and she feels she knows everything. She feels that she knows who Joe is. She's not going to fall for his antics, and she thinks she has this all mastered, and it's clearly the other way around this season, and that's something I thought was incredible. But then we get this moment where Joe, he's at this, you know, convention, basically talking about the future of computers and printing press and things like that, and it's this scene where he talks about how Cameron was the one that did it. For the first time, he gives Cameron all the credit. He says, I'm not the one that did this. This was all Cameron. We couldn't have done any of this without Cameron. And this is when Sarah realizes that he's in love with Cameron and that she has no place in this relationship. And she's obviously very pissed about it, because the fact that he's not telling her anything. He kept all of this from her, and she doesn't understand why. And he obviously, this is again someone that he just wants to prove that, no, I'm not like that anymore. I don't like her like that. And she ends up leaving him. He clearly realizes that he has no future with her, and it's very sad. I really did feel bad for Sarah, because you really are rooting for these two throughout the whole season. You want these two to be together as much as you're rooting for Gordon and Donna. You're rooting for these two as well, and I thought they did a very good job with those key relationships. There are 3 key relationships this season: Gordon and Donna, you know, Joe and Sarah, and I think Donna and Cameron. Those are like the 3 key relationships, and especially for Joe and Sarah, you really want these two to end up together, but it just doesn't work out. She realizes what he's doing. She can't be with him in this scenario, and she unfortunately does end up leaving him. It's very sad. I really did feel bad for Joe. This was someone who he really could have had a real future with, but any future is very quickly squandered after that, and any potential that they could have had together is also ruined. So things really don't end well for Joe, but that is basically everything that happens with Joe and Cameron and things like that. But now let's quickly get to Gordon, because there's one last thing to talk about with that. But back with Gordon, like I said, Gordon is suffering very bad health issues. He is going through a lot of stuff this season, where he's getting bloody noses, he's having like muscle spasms. I mean, he really does not know what's going on, and At first, he thinks, you know, maybe this is just stress or something like that, but he quickly learns that he's actually dying. He's dying. It's a very serious injury, and he's actually possibly dying, but he doesn't tell Donna. Now, this is understandable why he doesn't tell Donna, because he obviously doesn't want to put the stress on her, but it's also because he doesn't really have that relationship with Donna this season. These two are a lot more distant, and you kind of understand why they're a lot more distant, to the point where a lot of the season, Gordon is with his kids. He's not really with Donna. The kids don't really get to see Donna much. Donna's out on mutiny doing her own stuff with Cameron. She's away from the narrative for most of the season. I like seeing that. I thought it was interesting to see kind of a reverse where Gordon's the one at home and Donna's the one doing work, because that's just not what Gordon's used to. You know, he's used to himself being employed, and he does want employment, but at the same time, he can't really do much of anything. And not only is Donna distant this season, but she completely keeps one very important fact away from Gordon. And that is the fact that she's pregnant. We get this scene where she's in the bathroom. He thinks she's throwing up, and she's actually pregnant, we quickly realize. And she tells her mother that it was a miscarriage, but it's not a miscarriage. She actually is pregnant, and she's going to have an abortion. And she does, in fact, have an abortion. She never tells Gordon about it. Now, will she tell him? We don't really know. But that is another very important thing that she keeps from him. Like I said, it really just showed the distance between these two. While he's keeping a lot of merch, she's keeping just as much away from him, and we definitely do see that throughout the season, and I think probably throughout the course of the show. But he wants to get involved with Mutiny. He wants to find a way to get involved there, but after what he does with the hacking, Cameron basically tells Donna we can't trust him. There's no way we can trust him. You gotta leave him out of Mutiny, and she even insults Donna as a mother and really starts to get angry at her. There's this great scene where she talks about her as a mother and her kids and things like that, and her as a wife, and honestly, I get what Cameron is saying. The thing is, Cameron doesn't understand that because she hasn't been a mother. She doesn't have kids, and in many ways, I think Cameron kind of idolizes Donna. Donna's who she wants to be. Donna's the more confident, reserved one, and Cameron wants to be the way, but Cameron's in a position of power right now, and like I said, she goes through a very similar arc that Joe went through this season, and I really did like that. But back to Gordon, he ends up in this position where he goes to California because he wants to make amends with his brother before he dies one last time, and he ends up getting very close with his brother's either fiance or wife. I can't remember who she was, but it's his fiance or wife, and they get very close. They start talking and everything, and Gordon actually has sex with her, and it's a very sad moment. I really did feel bad for his brother in this moment, because obviously Gordon didn't mean for this to happen, but this is the only person that he could talk to. This is the relationship he wants with Donna, and the second he does it, he regrets it. And I'm actually not upset about that they did that this season. I honestly have nothing wrong with that. You guys might have thought that I did, but I completely understand why Gordon did this. See, Donna, when she did it with Hunt, I thought she had no reason to do it whatsoever. All she was doing was being a hypocrite in that sense. Gordon, on the other hand, has no one to talk to. He's all on his own. He's all alone. He basically just wants to find someone, and he really wants to be relevant, and he's not relevant right now, and the only person he's relevant with is this girl that his brother's with, and that's why he ends up having sex with her. And obviously his brother gets very mad, kicks him out, and you can totally understand that. I mean, the scene with him and his brother, it's very hard to watch because you're thinking, holy shit, this could actually be the last time Gordon sees his brother, but you don't really know what's going to happen there, and they kind of make you think Gordon might end up dying this season. They kind of make you think that. Now, you know that Gordon's not actually going to die, but they kind of make you think that he's doing that, and I thought that was interesting the way they did that, the way that they make you think that. I mean, you quickly realize that obviously he's not going to die. He's one of the main characters on the show. There's no way they're just going to kill him off like that. I thought that was interesting the way that they did all that, but anyway, I did like seeing Gordon's arc. I thought that, like I said, made a lot of sense as to why he did that. So that's really what ends up happening with Gordon. Later, Donna finds out. We'll get into that in a second, but let's get back to Cameron for a second, because we need to talk about Cameron. This is really my only problem with this season. It involves Cameron and this guy, I can't remember, Tom, this guy Tom, Tom is this guy that Cameron starts getting close to, and she does start dating, but I really wasn't a fan of his character. One, because I really didn't feel he needed to be there. I didn't really understand what the point of his character was, and also because of the fact that I really felt that he was just kind of a second Joe. He's what Joe was last season, where he's giving Cameron all these orders, he's telling her what to do, and obviously she doesn't listen because of what Joe did to her, but I just didn't really understand the point of his character. Why would Cameron like someone like this? Why would Cameron do this again? It just didn't really go with that. Other than that, though, I had no problems this season, but that's something that really kind of pissed me off, is what they end up doing with Cameron. I just didn't really feel that that really fits with the rest of the season. But other than that, like I said, I really did love what they did with the rest of the season. Let's go back to Joe, because there's a very key detail I really do want to talk about. First of all, Bosworth decides to leave because he's getting closer with his son, and he just doesn't feel this is the place for him anymore. He feels that he wants to be somewhere where he actually is kind of needed, and he doesn't really feel like he's needed there. He feels like his work is done, and he ends up leaving Mutiny, unfortunately. I'm sure he's going to come back into the mainframe next season, obviously, because I thought he was done from the show, and now he's back. So, like I said, I really did like what they did with him this season. I thought he really was great. But then what ends up happening is we see Gordon. He is having this horrible problem where he is running away from something that he did, and he ends up falling down a flight of stairs, and he obviously is going through a very psychological experience, and this is when Donna realizes that she has to come home. She has to see what's going on with Gordon. She obviously needs to check on him, and this really sets up the finale very well. And then the only other thing is the guy that Cameron is with, Cameron and Tom. Tom ends up leaving her because he feels he hasn't contributed anything. He feels it's all been Cameron, and like I said, I'm glad that he left because I didn't really feel he contributed much to the story. But that's everything that happens before the finale. We'll get into the finale in a little bit. But before I get there, I do want to talk about a couple other things. First of all, I know that was very scattered. I know, like I said, there's a lot going on this season. Not all of it is together. It's all kind of separate, but they're all really like one big story, so I was trying to talk about it as concise as possible. And in order to do that, I had to like go from one plot to the next and not tell the full plot because, like I said, it's one big story really, and I did like that, but it wasn't the easiest thing to review. So if you're upset about the recap and how mixed it was, just go watch the season. If I forgot something, just let me know, because I probably did forget something. I don't think I did, but I feel like I did. But anyway, let's talk about the direction for this scene, because the tone for the season is a lot different than Season 1. Season 1 was one of the darkest things you could see. I mean, right away, it kind of turns you off. It's a show where you had to be in a certain state of mind. You always felt kind of depressed. You always felt kind of hopeless watching it. The characters were always at each other's throats, and it really seemed like there were no hope for these characters. Season 2, one of the main definitions of Season 2 is hope. It's all about these characters hoping that we're going to succeed and that this is going to go well for us and that Mutiny is where we need to be. And these characters trying to find relevance. And yes, it gets very dramatic towards the end, especially in the last 3 episodes, but as dramatic as it gets, you're rooting for these characters all the way. They've made these characters even more interesting. All of the things that I was worried about with these characters in Season 1, like Gordon being a drunk or Joe being manipulative, they made them so much more than that. That's something I definitely will think they really did improve upon. Even characters like Cameron and Donna, characters that I really did love. Cameron is so much more than just a plot device this season. She's such a more interesting character. There's so much more going on with her, and I think they really showed every side of Cameron in this season. She has all these things that she wants, but she's never going to get, like her and Joe. That really isn't ever going to happen, and she needs to understand why. Donna is someone that I think had a lot more going on this season, where she's someone that I think, really didn't understand what was going on in her marriage, and she was someone that was really kept out of things because she was so busy at work all the time, and they did a great job with that. Bosworth, Sarah, those are two characters I loved a lot more this season. Sarah especially, I thought they did a great job with her. I love what Aleksa Palladino, I think is how you pronounce her name, but what she did this season, she was incredible. I loved her performance. Very sad what ends up happening with her and Joe, but I think her performance it kept it from being just another random girl in Joe's life and a plot device to an actually full-formed character. And I think she just did an incredible job with that. Honestly, she was so great this season. And Lee Pace and McNairy, I thought were even better this season. They had so many great performances, and I truly feel that some of these performances are Emmy-worthy. Now, I know they're not going to get Emmys because no one really watches this show, unfortunately, but I know that, I really did feel that a lot of the performances really did improve this season. And especially in the cinematography. What I really loved about the cinematography, that this is a lot more straightforward of a season. I mean, season 1, they tried to do all these deep metaphors and all these kind of things with the cinematography, all these weird things, and they didn't really do that this season. They kept it solely on the characters and the story surrounding them, and that's something I really did like, because you don't need to do that in a show like this. There was really no reason for them to do that. Now, there are some things that they'll do, like, for example, Gordon hacking is kind of representing him and Donna's marriage, things like that. That's something I think they did well, but it's a lot more clearer, and things are a lot more concise, and you can follow what's going on a lot more this season. That's something I did like. I think season 1, it was easy to follow, but there was so much going on, and there were so many things that didn't make sense, and that was not the case with this season. Really, I think everything that was going on made total sense why it happened, especially with Gordon and Donna and Joe and Sarah. Those two narratives especially, you could totally understand what was going on in both of those things. And I think the messages this season and the themes were so much deeper. Like I said, the themes of the season, the number one theme, and the creators have said it, and I'd agree, it's all about relevance. All these characters want to be relevant. All of them want to feel like they have a role to play. All of them want to feel like they are wanted and that they're not just some random, they're not just some random person in a bigger story. And I like that they did that. Thought that was a lot more interesting. But it also has to do with identity. All these characters really realizing who they are, coming to the realization that if they want this, then this is who they're going to be. And all these characters really undergo a transformation, especially in the season finale. And I really did love that. I thought that was very well done. And I thought that also was great. The score in general I thought was really good. I also want to talk about the use of changing the narrative, because like I said, it goes from computers and things like that to more about video games, and that's something I thought they did even better this season. Last season they did a good job with talking about computers and, competing forces like Apple and IBM, which they do talk about briefly this season, but it's a lot more focused on technology and video games, and I thought they did that really well, especially in a scene where Gordon is with his daughters, and he asks them what they want to do, and the only thing they want to do is go to their grandma and grandpa's house, but it's not because they want to be their grandma and grandpa, it's because their grandma and grandpa have the latest video game of Mario Party, and they want to play it as soon as possible, and I thought that just was a very fun, subtle way of really showing how addicting video games are becoming and how big of an epidemic that really was in the 1980s. I mean, no one really had seen something like it before, and I think they had a very subtle, funny reference to Mario that I laughed my ass off. I thought it was a lot more fun. That's something else with the tones. It's a lot more fun. There are a lot more jokes in this season. It's not nearly as dark, and even if there was dark stuff going on, you had the Mutiny crew who always were telling jokes. They're talking about, I mean, these are guys who are talking about movies. These are guys that are anything but professional. When push comes to shove, obviously they're professional, but they're very casual in the workplace, and I think it was just a lot more interesting to watch and a lot more fun to watch than just your typical Mad Men type workplace drama. I think it was a lot more interesting to do with that, and that's something else I thought was very well deserved and well earned this season. So, now that I've talked about that, now I want to get into the season finale, because there's a lot more talk about that happens in this finale than in season 1. So if you guys haven't seen the finale, just binge the show. I was able to binge the season in 2 days. I finished it a lot quicker than season 1, because like I said, I was into it a lot more. I thought it was so much more interesting. I thought the story going on here was better. I thought the characters were better. I really just thought everything was better, except for that one thing with Tom, but he's not really talked about after the season. I think they're going to kind of abandon him after the season. But let's talk about the finale overall, because a lot goes on. Let's talk about Joe, because Joe's the character that I felt the worst for in this finale, because in the very beginning, Joe realizes that, Sarah and him, they have no chance. He very quickly signs divorce papers, to get her out of his life. And that leads us to this brilliant scene where Joe's driving in the car, and we don't know what he's going to do, and he takes his hands off the steering wheel for a second, and I straight up thought in this scene that he was thinking, I'm no good anymore. I don't have anyone. I'm just going to go kill myself. It really seemed like that's exactly what Joe was going to do. He clearly was trying to commit suicide, but he clearly decides not to do that and is pulled back in, and once again is looking for a fresh start. He's looking for something to do, and he's looking for a way to patch things up with Wheeler. He feels that Wheeler is someone that's going to help him in this place called but what was the place he worked? I can't think of the place he worked at, but it was with Wheeler, and basically he recruits Gordon, who wants to help him, and Gordon's going through a very similar thing with Donna. Donna and him are definitely not on good terms. Donna can very quickly tell there's something going on with Gordon, especially when she talks to Joni and Haley. This is when she realizes that Gordon's kept a lot from her, the fact of how his health is. And also that when Donna told him to go to therapy, Gordon just joked about it. He didn't really take it seriously at all. And that also very much upsets her, because once again, this is her way of helping him, but it's the only way she has truly helped him. That's something that definitely does upset Gordon, and something we really can understand. Obviously, Donna's someone that does want to be there for Gordon, but she hasn't been there all season, so she does not understand the struggle that he's endured and what he's gone through throughout the course of the entire season. The fact that he's gone through a lot of stress, and especially what happened in California. And that scene where those two are talking, and Gordon says, I don't know who you are anymore. I don't know what you're doing. Why are you talking to me like this? And that is when everything comes out, where she asks him straight up what happened in California. He says he doesn't want to talk about it, and he very quickly tells her that he had an affair, and he feels terrible about it. And at this point, that scene, I mean, I have to say, Kerry, Bische, and, Scoot McNairy, they both gave incredible performance in that scene. I thought they both did an incredible job, and they both were so good there. But as far as, the next scene goes, I love the next scene where Don is with Cameron, because, like I said, they really do bond very well, and you really do see that even though these two are at each other's throats, they're always going to be friends, and that's something I thought was very well shown in this season. I really did like that. But Donna and Cameron especially, you see that she's with Cameron, and at this point, she doesn't feel like she has some sort of a marriage with Gordon. She feels it's over. She feels that there's no way to get it back, but this is when Cameron gives her this opportunity and basically tells her, we're not a game company. This is not where our future's at. It's not going to work for us anymore. People are liking it, but it's just not really what we need to do. She gives her this opportunity to move to California, start over, and focus on Silicon Valley. That's what they're going to do. They're going to try to build the Silicon Valley, and we'll have to see if that's going to work. But basically, Donna presents Gordon with this opportunity and basically tells him that we have no other options. We're going to use all the money we have. We're going to go to LA and Silicon Valley and start over, because that is the only way they're going to be able to improve their marriage. Now, is this going to help their marriage? We don't really know. But Donna wants to do whatever she can to not sever her marriage. She wants to keep it intact. She wants to keep that to herself. And it's what Gordon needs as well, because Gordon's someone where this is the only relationship he has left. And it's mainly because of a phone call with Joe, which this I absolutely love, because Joe starts working with this guy, played by Skylar Astin, who I really did like his character of Jesse. Same exact name as in Pitch Perfect, which I thought was interesting, but him and Jesse, they start working together, and he starts finding antivirus software, and he thinks that maybe this is something that him and Gordon could start working on, but Gordon is now going to work at Mutiny. He tells him that, I'm done, I'm working at Mutiny, I can't do this right now, and this obviously very much upsets Joe, because finally Joe seemed like he found something that he was passionate about, that he was ready to actually work on with Joe. And that scene where he goes from happy to completely distraught in 5 seconds, I mean, that shows how great Lee Pace is as this character. When they give him great stuff, he can be amazing, and that's something I think Lee Pace did very well, is that they gave Joe a lot more reserved stuff to do, and in that little moment, just on that phone, I mean, when he's putting that phone down, coming to the realization that, holy shit, Gordon and I are finally done. There's no future of us working together anymore, and he puts that phone down. You don't know what he's going to do until we cut to 1 year later. You're thinking, okay, this is it for Joe and Gordon, and honestly, that alone to me felt like a series finale. Why? Because this was written like one. They didn't know if they were getting a season 3, so they basically set this up like it could be a series finale, and honestly, I'm surprised it got a season 3, because it really does work, I think, as the perfect series finale for the show. But they all get on the plane because Cameron goes to Tom, tells him what her plan is and how she wants to do this and how she wants to work on this on her own. She does thank him, says that he did contribute something, and they all get on the plane. They're going over to LA, and Donna, we see, she has to go. Gordon brings up this whole thing where, they didn't have, he says, when we go to LA, maybe we'll have another kid. But as we know, Donna ended up having an abortion. She didn't tell him about her pregnancy and everything. So she ends up going into the bathroom, crying, realizing that she could have told Gordon that she's also keeping just as much from him. There's a lot that she did that he does not know about, and that he definitely, they need to open themselves up, they need to open themselves up to each other more. But the question is, are they going to be able to? And then at the last second, Gordon sees that Joe not only is working on the antivirus software, but he's going to the exact same place that they are, so that way he can find a way to work with Gordon. And Joe basically goes there. We know he's going to be working with them, and that is how the season ends, which perfectly sets us up for Season 3, which we didn't know there was going to be a Season 3. I'm surprised the show got a Season 3, but I'm all the better for it, because I wouldn't have been able to watch this season. I wouldn't have even thought of watching this show had it not gotten renewed. Definitely I would not have done that, but I think it's the perfect setup towards Season 3. I think it's a very well done way of setting it up, and I can't wait to see where we end up going once we get there. And that is how Season 2 ends, and I have to say, like I said, it really is like night and day with this series. I mean, Season 1 just had things that had potential, but this season just did everything right. Things like that final conversation with Joe. Things like, that scene where, that final conversation with Joe, or the scene, or all the stuff with Sarah, or the stuff with Joe, with Gordon and Donna. That kind of stuff that we had this season. Those little character moments we did have last season, but the season was not as interested in shock value. And I like that they did that, because it was so interesting in that last season, and it didn't work. I like that we finally got this reboot, and I think in that sense, it worked very well. But there is a lot to think about for Season 3. I mean, what's going to happen with Joe? Obviously, Gordon's going to be very pissed at him. I think they're going to clash a lot, but we'll have to see what Joe's really thinking here. Is Joe really going to try to manipulate them again? I mean, a lot of people are thinking the old Joe's going to come back, but I don't really know if that's going to happen. I don't think they take an entire season just to bring the old Joe back. It wouldn't make sense to do that, but at the same time, you kind of would understand that Joe's lost everyone at this point. He has no one at all, and I think he's going to try to win back Gordon, to win back Cameron, and he's going to go to desperate measures to do so, definitely, because his version of the future involves those three. He needs to be with those three, at one of them in his life. He needs one of them in his life, and we'll have to see how that goes. Gordon and Donna, I don't know if they're going to be able to repair their marriage. I really don't. I think they think they're going to be able to, but I very much think that it's not going to work out for them. I mean, we already saw they were very close to getting a divorce this season. I really thought that was going to happen, and I don't know if they really are going to be able to repair this, but we'll have to see what happens with that. I think that's going to be very interesting. Is Donna going to tell Gordon what she did with their kid? I don't know. Obviously, as we know, she aborted the child, and she, he doesn't know that she did that, so how's that conversation going to come up? I'm wondering about Sarah. Is Sarah possibly going to come back in Joe's life? Is he ever going to see her again? I don't think so. I think Sarah kind of, once he divorced her, that's it. Because as we know, once Joe shuts you out of your life, you're kind of done. But I don't know. Maybe Sarah is going to come back into the story somehow. I don't really know. We'll have to see what happens with there. I think we are going to, I don't know. Wheeler, I don't think we'll ever see again. I think he's kind of done. But you can't really have Sarah without Wheeler. So we'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be interesting as well. And then Bosworth. Bosworth, as we know, he's left Muni for right now. But how is he going to come back? He's got to come back in some way. He's definitely as much a part of the story as those key four are, and I think he's definitely going to come back in some way. We'll have to see what happens there. And are they actually going to be successful? I think Muni, they think that this is finally going to be their safe haven. This is going to be the place where they're actually successful. They're going to be able to present these things. These projects they've been working on, they're actually going to work out. But is this really the place for them, or are they just going to end up more failures and less success? We'll have to see what happens with that. But anyways, guys, I love this season. I thought this was an incredible season overall. It was so much better than Season 1 for so many reasons, and I am definitely going to give Season 2 a 4.5 out of 5 or an A. Like I said, the only reason is because of that character of Tom. I just didn't feel he really needed to be here. But guys, this is such an improvement over Season 1. I was so impressed by the way this season turned out. I loved almost every episode. There really wasn't a single episode I didn't like. I loved everything that went on this season. I thought it was so much more interesting. They had a bigger focus on character and less focus on shock value, and it really did benefit them by focusing more on Donna and Cameron and mirroring that of Joe and Gordon, but also giving Joe and Gordon stuff to do. I thought it was very well done. I really did love that. Had a great plot about, like I said, being relevant, and really, I think, set us up for what could have been the end of the show, but makes me even more excited for what Season 3 is going to be. And can Season 3 actually top this season? I don't know. Now, of course, the big question is Season 3 going to top this season? I don't know. The season was so good that I don't really know if they're going to be able to do that, but I feel like it's still possible. I mean, they haven't had a perfect season yet, so I feel like next season could be perfect. We'll have to see. I know there's already been 2 episodes, so I am going to watch those 2 episodes tonight, most likely, and then I'll let you know. I'm gonna stick to season reviews. I think this show just works better if I review it as a season rather than every episode. I just think it works better that way. I have more to say about the season than I do about the episodes. But anyways, guys, I am now officially caught up to Halt and Catch Fire. I am very happy about it. I finished it very quickly. By the way, the next show I will be binging is Narcos, just so you guys know, because I know Narcos Season 2 is coming back next week, so that'll be the next show I'm binging. But let me know what you guys thought of this season. Love to your thoughts on it. How did it compare to last season? What do you think of Season 3 so far? If you've already watched it, love to your thoughts on that. Just don't tell me anything about Season 3. If anything major has happened, I don't know if there has. There's only been 2 episodes. But let me know what you guys thought of the season. Love to your thoughts on it. What are your predictions for next season? And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be tonight's episode of Mr. Robot. And we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.